Hi there, Mr. Reardon here to walk you through the fourth of our English language concepts for this year. So this concept is actually three smaller and closely related concepts. And so I'm going to be walking you through all of these, and they are verb, tense, aspect, and mood. A lot of languages, right, require that in the process of expressing different ideas, one, make changes to the verbs and the words that surround the verbs. And in particular, speakers make these changes to the verbs and the words that immediately surround the verbs to express really specific, clear, and refined time relationships between events. There are other ways to do this in languages, of course, but many European languages make changes to the verbs. That's how they express time or time relationships between events. These uh, time relationships expressed through verbs are known as tense and aspect. So tense and aspect can be combined with mood, the third one here, to express an even wider range of time relationships. So it's entirely possible that you know a lot of these terms, right? You've heard them before. Maybe you're just not that intimately familiar with them, and you need a little review. If you have learned English, like say you have been actively learning the English language in the last 5 years or so, then you actually might be more comfortable and more familiar with all this terminology. But if you're a native English speaker, you might not know it at all, or just barely. And this will be an opportunity for you to put names to things that you already know how to do. You can do these things naturally because you're an English speaker. But do you know what the pieces are called? Do you know how to talk about them in the way that we need to talk about them as people analyzing rhetoric and talking about writing and talking about language in AP English language and composition? And then, of course, I also just want you to be aware that these terms are, right, a lot of this might seem really complicated, right? And I assure you that even though the individual pieces might seem really complicated, when you actually go to do the exercises and you do a few, you struggle a little bit, you look at your answers, you understand why the correct answers are correct, and then you go and try again, you're going to find grammar actually possessing a certain logic, almost mathematical logic that is understandable and that is not actually all that hard for you. So tense. What is tense? Tense is a rough tool, right, that many languages use to express the relationship of events to the present, right? It doesn't allow for a lot of refinement, and there are three tenses, right? In English, anyway, we have three: present, past, future. That's it. There are now present tense. We use present tense to express actions that are happening in the present or happening regularly or habitually in the present, or that includes in the present. So we don't need any auxiliary verbs or any tense words to express the present tense in English, right? We just have a subject and the verb. So some examples, right? I run, right? I walk every Saturday, right? I study on weekends. I run is just expressing that run is something I do habitually. Present tense verb conjugation of to run, right? I walk every Saturday, a habit. I study on weekends, a habit. Present tense. I hike every summer, another habit, right? All right. Past tense. So past tense is used to express finite actions in the past, right? These are actions that have been completed. We also don't need any auxiliary verbs or tense words in English to express the past tense. Verbs just change a little bit. So from I walk, present tense, to I walked, past tense. I sat down. She wrote a letter. From sit, present, to sat, past. From write, present, to wrote, past. Charles yodeled into the valley. And then the sound echoed back to him. All right. Future tense. We use future to express future actions usually with some certainty implied, right? When we're using the future tense, it is very likely that we're going to do that thing. We're expressing some certainty. So we use this verb to will, right? We almost never actually see the verb used in its actual verb form, like um, uh, I will that you um, go out the back door, right? That feels dated to us, but we use this verb to will as an auxiliary verb to express the future tense, right? So I will walk to school on Friday, right? I could say I will walk to school and get rid of the fact that it's on Friday, and it would still be clear that this is an action. This is an action. This walking is going to happen in the future, and the will is what allows us to make that determination. I will sit down when I get there, right? When I get there, sitting down will happen. It is something that will happen in the future. Um, I will write an email this afternoon. Again, future tense, something that I will do this afternoon. I will be quiet after 1 a.m. Again, same thing. After 1 a.m., being quiet is a thing that is fairly likely to happen, and it's also in the future. Um, all right, so those were our tenses. We can now talk about aspect. Aspect is a linguistic tool that, combined with tense, allows even more refinement, right? Even more clarity and refinement in the expression of time relationships between events, right? Tense alone only allows present, past, and future, but doesn't, and then you have to add a bunch more words if you want to make it more specific. But if we add aspect, right, we can actually get even more refined in what we're expressing, right? So there are four aspects that we talk about in English: simple, perfect, progressive, and perfect progressive. So the simple aspect, right? The simple aspect is used to express single actions, habits, or routines, right? So there are no tense words or auxiliary verbs involved in the expression of the simple aspect, right? So I go to the store every Saturday. um, I went to the store last Saturday, right? This is just single actions, or these are single actions, right? Or these are, in this case, they're actually habits, right? Things that are happening. I eat pizza. Statement, right? I ate the pizza. Different tenses, right? One for both of these examples, we have a present and a past, but they're all in the simple aspect, because it's just right a single action happening in the past or present or past. I swim every morning. I swam this morning. All right. The perfect aspect. We use the perfect aspect to express past events with emphasis on the relationship of those past events to the present moment, right? So and in order to form this, we use the verb to have as an auxiliary verb, conjugated with the whatever the subject pronoun is, right? And then the verb's past participle. So I have gone to the store already. Right. I have eaten all of the pizza. I have swum in every pool in this county. So, right, with respect to right now, I have gone to the store, right? Going to the store is something that happened in the past, right? But this is expressing that it's relevant right now that I went to the store in the past, right? So there's a an acknowledgement of the present and also of an event that happened in the past, and that indicates the perfect aspect. Um, so the progressive aspect, right? The progressive aspect is used to express ongoing actions in the present, right? There's emphasis in this case on the fact that they're happening right now. They are in progress, right? We like to use the verb to be in order to do this, followed by the present, so ing participle. So I am going to the store. Like that is something I'm doing right now, or in this case, it could also imply that it's something that I'm about to do. Right. So very, very soon in the future. Um, he is eating pizza. Like right now, pizza is entering his face and then his stomach. Right. He's eating pizza at this moment. It is in progress. Jesse and Mike are swimming, right? Right now, Jesse and Mike are in the pool. Swimming is happening, and they are the people doing it. So perfect progressive, just putting together two of the aspects. Um, right, we're combining the perfect and progressive aspects. So um, the perfect progressive aspect is used to express actions or ongoing actions that started in the past and have continued up until the present moment without necessarily stopping, right? So we need two auxiliary verbs in this case. We need to have and to be, just borrowing both auxiliary verbs. And then, of course, we use the present participle for the progressive. So I have been going to the store every Saturday for a decade, right? Going to the store is something that has been an ongoing action, right? And with respect to right now, it's been happening for a long time in the past. It's been ongoing up until the present moment, right? And I'm not implying whether I have or haven't stopped going to the store, right? That information is not given by this verb. You'd have to add more information, right? But ongoing actions that started in the past and continued up to the present moment. Same thing here. I have been eating pizza for breakfast daily since I was 5. That is right, this is again perfect progressive. We have the eating of pizza that has been happening for a long time, right, since the speaker was 5, right, and it has continued all the way up until the present moment. I think implied here, you could maybe assume that this tradition has continued and is continuing right now. And then, but we don't know for sure. And then I have been swimming on the Palo Alto Stanford Aquatics team for 1 year. So, right, swimming is something that started in the past and has been ongoing, right, and may still be ongoing right now. So perfect progressive. Okay, now we need to add mood here. So, mood is an even further refinement that many European languages, including English, apply to verbs that add on top of tense and aspect attitude, right? The speaker is conveying a certain attitude toward a subject without necessarily explicitly stating that that is their attitude, right? Right. Most, with the tenses and aspects, it's pretty, the ones I've given you are the tenses and aspects, and there's no disagreement. But I need to say that most grammarians and linguists agree that there are four major moods in English, though there are some people, if you Google around, that add others or maybe combine them in different ways. But this is how I would like you to understand them because I think it's the clearest and easiest to understand. So there's indicative, imperative, conditional, and subjunctive moods. So, indicative mood. This is used for conveying information, right? Stating facts or seeking facts through the asking of questions. All of the examples so far in this presentation on every slide have been in the indicative mood, right? So the right indicative is really common. I would venture to guess that most interactions and definitely most printed expressions are in the indicative mood. So I walk to the store whenever I can. Um, do you have a bicycle? He has eaten all the onions. Right. The first and third example are giving facts, stating facts, and the middle one there is a question seeking a fact, right? So indicative mood. Um, imperative mood. The imperative mood is used for issuing commands or requests, right? So take out your Chromebooks, right? The verb take there is in the imperative mood. Get your butt out of here, right? Get is the verb, your butt is the object of the verb, and I'm saying, of course, this is actually an example of metonymy, right? Because this particular part of the body of the person being addressed is standing in for the entire person, right? And right, the statement is expressing, right, this person, get out of here, right? Leave. Um, and then shut up already, right? The entire verb is shut up. This is a phrasal verb, right? And it is in the imperative mood. Okay. Conditional mood. The conditional mood is used for expressing hypotheticals. So English speakers will typically use the verb would, right, as an auxiliary verb to express the conditional mood. But some verbs, one that comes to mind is can or to be able to, right, have special conditional forms. And there are a bunch of words we use. Might is another one that expresses the conditional, or may, right? Some examples. I would make grammar easier if, on this condition, I had the power to do so. Right? I would buy you a bicycle if I had the money. I could go to the store on Sundays instead. Right? Could is this special form of the conditional, indicating the conditional mood with the verb can or to be able to. Right? I should do my homework. Should is another special form. It's indicating, right? Like, I don't know if I actually will. It's hypothetical, but it's something that maybe that is um, uh, that really ought to be done, but may not necessarily get done. You might think of should as it's a conditional form of the verb shall, right? Which is actually similar to will, right? All right. Um, I might need some clarification on verb tense, aspect, and mood in class tomorrow. Might, again, is another example of a special conditional word, conditional indicating word in English. All right. Subjunctive mood, last one. The subjunctive mood is used for expressing desires and wishes, doubts, and hypotheticals that follow if, right? So, right, changing some verbs in the subjunctive mood is fairly uncommon in English today, right? There are some verbs that we do change, and some that just don't really change that much because our language is changing. Languages always change over time. Right? When we actually express the subjunctive mood in English, we're typically just take the third person plural form of the verb, whatever it is, and then move it into the simple past tense, right? So I have the power to make grammar easier, right? Imperative statement in the imperative mood. I have, but I would I would make grammar easier if I had the power to do so, right? I'm still in the present tense, right? Still, it's right. I'm saying this is true right now. I'm speaking in the present tense, but I'm in the subjunctive mood, so I had to go from have to has, right? One step back in the past, using the simple past tense. I cannot eat carrots. That's just in the imperative, but I would eat carrots if I were not allergic to them, right? That were is in the subjunctive mood. Now, if you hear someone say something like, right, I would eat carrots if I was not allergic to them, right, typically most English speakers would reflect upon that as correct. They wouldn't think it's wrong. When I hear it, because I know the rule, right, of course, I cringe, but because it should be in the subjunctive mood, but most people don't really follow this rule anymore. And if you do, you might sound a little more formal. I can speak more loudly. I would speak more loudly if I could, but I am not able to. In this case, is actually also the subjunctive mood indicator of the verb can or to be able to, right? So if you see a could, you need to actually check that there is a verb coming right after it, right? That would indicate the conditional. But if it's after an if, right, and there is a conditional would earlier in the sentence or somewhere else in the sentence, then that could might be behaving like the subjunctive form of can or to be able to. Okay, so some final notes here. Exercises for this concept will ask you to identify a few things: tense, aspect, and mood of verbs. Right? Always express them in that order. Right? So you say the tense, and then you say the aspect, and then you say the mood in order. If the mood is indicative, right, you can drop it. Right? You don't need to say it because it's implied that it's indicative unless you explicitly state that it is in some other mood, right? Okay, lots of words. Let me tell you quickly here, right? We typically also change verbs, not, within every tense, aspect, and mood, right? Verbs also change based on the subject, right? Whether the subject is first person, second person, third person, first person I, second person you, third person he, she, her, it, or any single noun. We is also first person, but plural. Y'all is this second person plural form that some people don't think is necessarily correct. And then they, third person plural, right? So if you, depending on this subject pronoun, right, or the subject itself, if it's just a noun or multiple nouns, or a plural noun, right, that also impacts the final form of the verb within each tense, aspect, and mood, right? So the process of changing verbs to make sense in sentences based on, right, their subject pronouns and the tense, aspect, and mood, of course, is called conjugation. And if you've learned another European language, right, like Spanish or French, you are very familiar with the process of conjugation. Linguists might call it inflection. When talking about verbs, we're talking about the same thing. You can inflect nouns in some languages, but we are not talking about that right now. Okay, so here's an exercise you should try right now because I'm going to give you the answers, right? This is in your exercises at the very end of your notes. So try it now, pause the video, right? And then you should listen to me walk you through the answers. Okay, you should have done those. So I will be leaving at 7 a.m. Okay, this is the future progressive, right? Will indicates the future, right? We have a to be, and then we have the ing form, the present participle, right? So that indicates that we are in a progressive aspect. And then, of course, it's indicative, but you can drop that. I might have taken the 22 bus if it had arrived on time. Might is one of those conditional words, so you know we're in the conditional mood. Have automatically tells you it's perfect. It's in the perfect aspect, right? And then taken, right? Have taken together is the present perfect. So present perfect conditional. Okay. Will future tense. Have been present perfect. Um, but and then going is a present participle, right? So, but the have been contains a to be, so we know we're in the um, present perfect, uh, present tense, no, future tense, but we are in the perfect aspect and uh, but also the progressive aspect because we have the going, right? And the mood, of course, is indicative. So future perfect progressive. And then take out the trash. That's a command verb, right? And of course is indicative. And it's simple, right? No extra, no haves or wills. So simple present imperative. All right. And then what I'm asking you to do for these others is to just to do a verb conjugation. Of course, I know you know how to conjugate verbs in English, but do you know the words? Are you familiar with all of the language that I'm using in this question? That's what I'm testing you on here. Right. So, right, third person plural conjugation of the verb to go. So third person plural, well, the subject, I say start with the relevant pronoun. The relevant pronoun is they. That's the third person plural pronoun in English. And then, right, to go in the past perfect progressive indicative tense. Okay, so um, past, past perfect, we know we need a had, and had perfect is gone. So had gone, right, progressive, had been going, right? And then indicative, right? So they had been going. And then, so next one here, right? Second person singular, you, right? To exclaim, right? And then so use the pronoun present perfect conditional tense. Let's see here. To exclaim, present, you have, you would have exclaimed. Right, that's the right answer. You would have exclaimed. Right, the would indicates the conditional. The have is perfect, or have present perfect. It would say had if it was past perfect, right? And then exclaimed is the past participle of to exclaim. So that's it. That is all I have for you. You now should have all of the resources you need in order to be able to complete the associated exercises for this topic. Thank you.